The distress call came from a small, dying world named Irada, a planet on the edge of the Orion Rift. Once green and peaceful, Irada was now burning under the boots of the Creel Dominion, brutal conquerors known for wiping out anyone who dared resist. The Creel were feared across the stars, but this time they had made a mistake. They didn't know the child they had captured belonged to someone important, someone who knew about Earth. Lyra, a young Eridon technician, barely escaped the raid. Her village was gone, her people either enslaved or worse. Wounded and hiding in a crumbling bunker, she used an ancient, outlawed device, one built from human tech. With trembling fingers, she sent a desperate signal across the stars. It said, "Only, we helped you once. Please, help us now." For many in the galaxy, it was just a whisper, lost in the void. But Earth heard it. Earth had changed since the old wars. No longer loud or proud, humans had become silent observers. A sleeping giant, watching, remembering, waiting. But that call was different. High above the atmosphere of Earth, inside the massive command station Talon Reach, alarms flashed red. Commander Juno stared at the incoming message. She read it once, twice, then stood. "Prep the fleet," she said coldly. "The Deathworlders are going back to war." Across the galaxy, the Creel mocked the weak cries of the Eridans. They celebrated their conquest, laughing at the so-called humans, who hadn't been seen in force for decades. Their ships circled, Irada like hungry wolves, but they didn't see what was coming. At the edge of the system, space cracked open, a wormhole. Wide, silent, and glowing. The first ship came through, black, massive, and shaped like a blade. Then another, then 100 more. Human ships, Deathworlder designs, hardened by centuries of survival on the most dangerous planet known. Built for war, not defense. The Creel scanners failed to read their power cores. The engines ran silent, no broadcast signals, no threats, just one universal message: "We heard your call." In orbit, Creel commanders laughed at first, then they screamed. Missiles streaked silently across the void. Creel shields blinked, failed, and died. In seconds, the first 3 command ships were gone. Below, Lyra looked up from the ruins. In the sky, burning stars moved. Hope filled her chest for the first time in days. The Deathworlders had come, and this time, they weren't holding back. The skies above Irada turned red with fire. Creel warships tried to regroup, but they were too slow. Earth's fleet moved, like a hunting pack. No loud warnings, no speeches, just deadly precision. Lasers cut through Creel armor. Drones swarmed like insects, disabling engines and slicing weapons apart. In their capital cruiser, Creel commander Varric growled in disbelief. "Humans? Impossible! They vanished!" One of his lieutenants shouted, "These aren't like before. They're tech. We can't read it." Another blast rocked their ship. A human war drone had just drilled through the hull of one of their battleships without stopping. Panic spread through the Creel ranks. They had fought many species, slow, soft, predictable ones. But humans were chaos made flesh. Down on Irada's surface, Lyra limped through the rubble of her old village. She found a small cave near a broken water pump and waited, still, unsure if what she saw in the sky was real. Then a shadow passed over her. A large ship hovered above, sleek, black, and humming quietly. It lowered a ramp. A tall figure in armor stepped out. His face was hidden behind a visor, and his armor bore a single symbol: a silver wolf. He knelt beside Lyra and offered her water. "You're safe now. We heard you." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. I didn't think anyone would come." The soldier placed a small device on her arm. "You helped one of us long ago. That matters to us more than you know." Across the planet, drop pods slammed into Creel outposts. Human soldiers poured out, silent, disciplined, and ruthless. Their armor adapted to heat, wind, and radiation instantly. They used weapons the Creel had never seen, weapons that changed shape mid-battle, firing pulses or blades depending on the need. They didn't take prisoners. They didn't hesitate. The Deathworlders had returned. Meanwhile, in deep space far beyond Errata, other eyes were watching. In the Galactic Council chambers, members of dozens of alien races gathered in fear. Earth had been silent for so long, they had almost forgotten what humans were capable of. Now they remembered. One counselor whispered, "They were supposed to sleep forever. What woke them?" Another replied, "An old debt. That's all it took." A third counselor stood and spoke what they all feared: "We must prepare. If Earth is back and the balance has changed." Back on Errata, Lyra was taken aboard the human ship. She was brought to the bridge and allowed to speak to Commander Juno directly via holoscreen. Juno's eyes were sharp and calm. "You were brave to call us. What you did will save lives." Lyra bowed her head. "We thought the galaxy had forgotten us." Juno smiled. "The galaxy forgets many things. But humans, we remember everything." The bridge crew worked silently around them, scanning, marking targets, and directing reinforcements. Lyra looked out at the stars, now full of Earthships. This was no small rescue. This was war, and humanity had just begun. Creel resistance crumbled city by city. The human fleet did not stop with just saving Errata's surface. They pushed outward, attacking Creel command hubs, supply chains, and relay stations across the system. Within 2 days, Earth's forces had isolated every Creel outpost within 5 light years. They had a name for this operation: Echo Return. It meant, "You harmed one of ours. Now we echo the pain back, tenfold." In one of the destroyed Creel garrisons, a young Deathworlder trooper named Cole picked through the wreckage. His boots crunched glass and broken bones. His armor shimmered faintly as it adapted to the cold, winds sweeping across the plains. He stopped beside a collapsed structure where a Creel officer lay wounded. The alien hissed in defiance. Cole didn't speak. He simply raised his weapon. The Creel spat in his direction. "You monsters come for one scream?" the Creel asked, choking on blood. "That's all it took?" Cole finally answered, "We don't ignore our own. That's what makes us monsters to you." A clean pulse ended the conversation. In the command center of Talon Reach, Commander Juno received reports from all fronts. One screen showed Errata's civilians being guided to safe zones. Another screen tracked the human fleet heading toward Creel space stations. Red markers blinked as more enemy ships fell. But Juno's eyes focused on a different message. One not from Earth's military, but from a hidden database buried deep in their history logs. The message was ancient, over 80 years old. It was a simple thank you from an Eridon farmer who once saved a human pilot shot down during a pirate raid. That farmer had given him shelter, food, and safety, and asked for nothing in return. The pilot had survived. Juno didn't know the pilot's name. The file had no image, but she knew this. This war had begun with one act of kindness, and Earth remembered. On the surface of Errata, Lyra watched humans setting up field hospitals and rebuilding old comm towers. The people who had once fled were now slowly returning. She stood near a young boy who had lost his parents during the Creel invasion. He looked at the massive human walkers patrolling the area with wide eyes. "Are they machines?" the boy asked. "No," Lyra replied with a soft smile. "They're protectors." Just then the ground trembled slightly, another human ship landing nearby. Lyra looked up to see a symbol painted boldly on its hull, a rising sun over cracked rock. It was Earth's symbol of justice. Not law, not peace, justice. Elsewhere, in Creel High Command, panic spread. The supreme Creel strategist barked orders, but nothing worked. Human ships didn't follow predictable patterns. They vanished and reappeared. They hacked Creel systems in seconds. Their soldiers seemed to know the terrain before even landing, and worst of all, the humans weren't angry. They were focused, cold, controlled. The strategist muttered, We awoke something ancient. We should have left Errata alone. Far above Errata, a new fleet entered the system, Earth's reinforcements. These weren't sleek battlecruisers, these were siege ships. Each one carried weapons meant for planetary defense or assault. Entire moons had been broken apart by such ships in the past. The signal from Talon Reach was clear. End this. The Q. Creel had crossed a line, and humans didn't believe in lines, they believed in responses. The Creel Empire was vast, but Earth didn't come to conquer it, they came to dismantle it. In orbit above the Creel border world of Targon, human siege ships formed a wide ring. They didn't fire immediately. Instead, they sent a single message, repeated, in dozens of languages, broadcast across all known frequencies. You took from those who once protected us. You will answer for it. Creel citizens panicked. Some ships tried to escape, but were quickly disabled, not destroyed. Earth didn't want chaos, they wanted clarity. Every move was calculated. On Errata, Lyra stood on a rise overlooking the valley where her home once stood. Human engineers were building new structures, using advanced materials that adjusted to Errata's harsh climate. What had been ashes was becoming a beginning. She walked beside Cole, the Deathworlder soldier who had first found her. You could have ignored us, she said quietly. The galaxy has before. Cole looked out across the plains. We don't leave debts unpaid. Lyra turned to him. But we never asked for a debt, he replied. You gave help without asking. That means more to us than treaties or rules. For humans, kindness wasn't forgotten. It was recorded, in memory, in data, in stories passed down through generations. And when that kindness was betrayed, so was Earth's silence. At the Creel, High Command, the strategist slammed a clawed hand onto the table. Why are they doing this? This wasn't their war. A younger officer hesitated, then replied, They see it as theirs because of one signal, from one Eridon. Another added, because of one old kindness, from decades ago. The strategist sneered. We rule half the outer systems, they'll never face us in full war. But he was wrong. Earth didn't need to rule systems. They needed only one thing, a reason, and now they had it. The next strike didn't come with missiles. It came through code. Human AI units slipped into Creel networks, silent, invisible. They disabled shields, reversed gravity in warships, and cut power to defensive grids, all without warning. Entire planets went dark. One Creel world found its air turned cold when its weather controls froze. Another lost all control over its orbital traffic. Civilian panic was everywhere. The Creel Empire was falling apart from the inside. Lyra received word that Errata was now officially under Earth's protection. Not a colony, not a subject world, a partner. One of the human officers explained, We don't come to own, we come to end threats. Then we leave peace behind. Lyra couldn't speak for a moment. Her people had never known this kind of loyalty, not from aliens, not even from some of their own. You do all this? She whispered. Because of something that happened so long ago? Yes, the officer said, because on Earth, we remember our friends, and we do not forgive their enemies. In the deepest Creel space station, a final meeting was called. The remaining Creel leaders voted. The message they sent to Earth was short. We surrender. Full retreat. Ceasefire requested. Human command on Talon Reach considered the message. Then came Earth's reply. We accept surrender, but justice isn't finished yet. Because for humans, stopping the Creel wasn't enough. They needed to make sure it never happened again. The war was over. At least, that's what the Creel thought. Their leaders had surrendered. Their armies stood down. Their ships were docked and silent. But Earth didn't leave. They stayed. For justice. Human troops spread across Creel worlds. Not to invade, but to search. They found labor camps, hidden bunkers, and secret prisons. Each one held people who had cried for help and were never answered. Until now. One rescue mission uncovered over 1,000 Eridon civilians in cryopods. Another freed scientists, engineers, and children taken from peaceful colonies. Earth documented everything. recorded it, broadcast it across the galaxy. The message was clear. We don't forget, and we don't let others forget either. Lyra stood beside a human officer, on a Creel world where her own uncle had once been taken. She stared at the gates of a ruined camp now broken wide open. I used to think our screams were too small, she said softly. They weren't, the officer replied. The galaxy just stopped listening, but we didn't. Lyra looked up at the sky as more human dropships descended, bringing supplies, doctors, and builders. You came too late to save everyone, she said. We came just in time to stop it forever, the officer answered. In the Galactic Council chambers, fear turned into silence. Representatives from neutral species and allied factions watched footage of Earth's forces moving with discipline, not rage, not revenge, but cold justice. One ambassador, shaking, asked, They were quiet for 50 years. And this is what they still are? Another nodded. Now imagine if they were angry. On the rebuilt Eridan capital, a ceremony was held. The humans didn't bring trophies, they brought a plaque. It said only, to the voices that were not ignored, to the call that was heard, to the friendship never forgotten. Lyra was asked to speak. She stood before a crowd of Eridans and humans, her voice quiet but strong. You didn't just fight for us. You reminded us that kindness matters. Even across stars, even across time. The crowd cheered. But more than that, they believed again. Elsewhere in the Creel Empire, small rebellions began. Planets once controlled by force now rose up, not out of hope, but out of the fear that Earth would come again if they didn't act right. The Creel government, reduced and broken, could only watch as their grip slipped. Humanity hadn't destroyed them completely, but they had made sure the Creel would never rule by fear again. Back aboard Talon Reach, Commander Juno looked out at the stars. A junior officer approached. Should we return home, ma'am? Juno shook her head. Not yet. We stay until the galaxy knows we don't. Need to shout to be heard. She glanced at the old message still displayed on her screen, the one from long ago. Just 3 words. Please help us. That was enough. And Earth had answered. Peace slowly returned to Arada. The skies were calm. The fields, once scorched and broken, now bloomed with green again. Human engineers worked side by side with Eridan builders. Homes rose where ruins once stood. Children laughed again. But Earth didn't forget why they came. Every Deathworlder soldier still stood ready. Their ships remained in orbit. Their presence reminded the galaxy. This peace was protected by fire. Lyra walked through her rebuilt village. With Cole beside her, she watched as humans trained Eridan defenders, teaching them how to fight, how to defend themselves, how to never be helpless again. Your people don't act like heroes, Lyra said. You don't brag, you don't shout. Cole gave a small smile. We're not here to be heroes. We're here to make sure no one else becomes a victim. She looked at the sky. Will you stay? Not forever, he said. But long enough. In the Creel system, the cleanup continued. Human forces didn't leave destruction behind. They brought courts, trials, truth. War criminals were found. Files were decrypted. Victims spoke. The galaxy watched as humanity did what most empires never did. They held their enemies accountable publicly. In one broadcasted trial, a Creel commander who oversaw an attack on peaceful settlements was brought forward. Lyra watched. From Irada, her hands trembling. The human judge said, "This isn't revenge, this is memory," and sentence was passed. Back on Earth, billions watched from afar. They hadn't gone to war in generations. Many feared the return of violence, but when they saw why the fleet moved, when they heard the Eridan's original message, when they learned about the old kindness repaid, they understood. Humanity didn't fight for power. They fought for a promise, one they hadn't even made, but remembered anyway. On Talon Reach, Commander Juno stood before her command crew. We have a choice, she said. We can leave the galaxy in fear of us, or we can teach it what Earth truly means. She looked at the screen showing Irada, now glowing with life. We choose justice and peace that remembers the cost. Her crew saluted without words, because they knew this was not the end of a war, it was the beginning of a legacy. In the final days of deployment, human ships lifted from Irada's surface, one by one. People waved from rooftops and hilltops. Eridan banners flew beside Earth's symbol. Lyra stood near the landing pad watching as Cole walked toward the last dropship. He turned once, looked at her, and gave a slow nod. No promises, no goodbyes, just respect. She placed her hand over her. Heart in return, the ship rose and disappeared into the sky. Years passed. Irada became more than a rescued world. It became a symbol of unity, of courage, and of what happened when kindness echoed across stars. Children in schools learned how one message changed the galaxy. Statues were raised, not of soldiers, but of Lyra holding the ancient signal device that sent Earth the SOS. It stood in the center of the capital, beneath the twin moons. In the Galactic Council, everything had shifted. Where once Earth's seat was silent, now it spoke, with calm strength. Human ambassadors didn't threaten, they reminded. They didn't demand, they remembered. One delegate from a distant world once asked, "What keeps Earth watching? Why don't you leave the galaxy behind?" The human representative answered softly, "Because one voice cried for help." And we heard it. Far away in the cold systems once ruled by the Creel, peace began to take root. Some Creel worlds had turned violent again but were quickly quieted, by their own people, not by humans. The fear of Earth was strong, but more than that, the hope of being like Earth was stronger. Justice had become a new language in the stars, and Earth had taught it. Back on Irada, Lyra now served as a leader, not a fighter, not a commander, but a guide. She worked with human advisors to help other small worlds build defenses, share knowledge, and join the new alliance Earth had helped form. She sometimes visited the old crash site, the place where she had hidden, bleeding and alone, years ago. Now, a peaceful garden grew there. At the center stood a stone slab carved with words from Commander Juno. "The galaxy forgot your pain. We did not." One day a ship arrived above Irada, sleek, silent, and marked with Earth's silver wolf. From it stepped Cole, now older, with more scars on his hands, but the same calm in his eyes. He didn't come with weapons, just words. "Came to see what you've built," he told Lyra. She smiled. "You helped us build it." They walked through the city together, quiet, surrounded by people who no longer feared the stars. In orbit, Talon Reach moved to its next mission. Earth didn't stay in one place too long. There were always voices, always signals. Not always loud, but still waiting, and Earth would listen. Because that's what made them different. Not their strength, not their tech, but the way they remembered. Final message. Broadcast from Earth. Command. To all those who think no one hears, them, Earth is listening. We are quiet, not gone. We are patient, not weak. And when a friend is in danger, we do not ask why. We ask, where?